come to Carl.
Oh, somebody's stuffing a duck.
Caddyshack promised golf course comedy gold, but behind those perfect greens lurked Hollywood's ugliest secrets. Bill Murray nearly destroyed everything, cocaine flowed like water hazards, and the country club, they banned the movie forever. These are 10 shocking secrets about Caddyshack. And the bonus? The Gopher was more professional than half the cast. So we got that going for us, which is nice, because this fairway gets darker than any sand trap. 1. Bill Murray's improvisation nearly destroyed the film. Here's what they never told you about Bill Murray's chaotic method that almost killed Caddyshack before it could be released. The comedian arrived on set with zero preparation, refusing to learn his lines or follow the script that everyone else had memorized. Murray's legendary Carl Spackler scenes were completely improvised because he couldn't be bothered to read what the writers had actually written for him. What shocked the production most? Murray's unpredictable behavior created a domino effect of confusion that forced other actors to abandon their carefully rehearsed performances. Director Harold Ramos watched helplessly as his structured comedy dissolved into anarchic chaos whenever Murray appeared. The devastating truth? Murray's supposed comedic genius was actually unprofessional selfishness that disrespected everyone else's work. His improvisation wasn't inspired creativity. It was lazy arrogance that nearly turned a promising script into unwatchable nonsense. The groundskeeper who became a cult icon was actually sabotaging the very film that would make him famous. 2. The country club banned their own movie forever. Nobody knew that Bushwood Country Club's real-life inspiration permanently banned Caddyshack from their premises after witnessing the final product. The exclusive Rolling Hills Country Club in Florida had welcomed the production with open arms, believing they were participating in a wholesome golf comedy. What they got instead was a crude satire that exposed the racism, classism, and corruption they'd spent decades hiding from public view. Club members were horrified to recognize their own behavior reflected in the film's most despicable characters. The devastating backlash was immediate and brutal. The club's board of directors not only banned the movie, but also launched a campaign to discredit the filmmakers and distance themselves from the production. What shocked the industry most? The real country club's reaction proved that Caddyshack's satire had hit too close to home, exposing truths about elite society that the wealthy didn't want revealed. Their embarrassment became the film's greatest endorsement. If the snobs hated it, audiences would love it. 3. Chevy Chase's ego war-poisoned everything. Here's the shocking truth about Chevy Chase's systematic campaign to destroy his co-star's confidence and steal every scene for himself. The comedian's notorious difficulty wasn't just personality quirks. It was calculated psychological warfare designed to make other actors look incompetent. Chase would deliberately sabotage takes by changing his timing, flubbing lines on purpose, and making unexpected physical movements that threw off his scene partners. What nobody knew? Chase's behavior was so toxic that several cast members considered quitting the production rather than endure his daily abuse. The devastating truth? Chase's famous Taiw character wasn't laid back cool. It was Chase being deliberately dismissive of everyone around him, treating his fellow actors like servants rather than colleagues. His seemingly effortless performance came from genuine contempt for the material and the people he was working with. The actor who played golf's most zen character was actually the set's most negative force, poisoning the atmosphere with his massive ego and petty cruelties. 4. Rodney Dangerfield's respect came at a terrible price. Here's what they never told you about Rodney Dangerfield's heartbreaking desperation behind his seemingly confident Al Chervik performance. The veteran comedian was secretly battling severe depression and financial ruin that made his character's nouveau riche persona a painful irony. Dangerfield's famous "I get no respect" catchphrase wasn't just comedy. It was his genuine cry for help from an industry that had marginalized him for decades. What shocked the cast most? Dangerfield's manic energy between takes was fueled by prescription drugs and alcohol that he used to numb the pain of feeling like an outsider even in his moment of triumph. The devastating truth? His breakthrough film role came when he was contemplating suicide, making his comedic success feel hollow and meaningless. The man who made audiences laugh about not getting respect was actually dying inside from the very lack of recognition he joked about. His performance was brilliant because it came from a place of authentic suffering that he transformed into entertainment for people who didn't understand his pain. 5. The cocaine epidemic infected the entire production. Nobody knew that Caddyshack's chaotic energy came from the cast and crew's widespread cocaine abuse that turned the set into a drug-fueled nightmare. What started as recreational party drugs quickly escalated into serious addiction problems that affected every aspect of the production. Multiple cast members were using cocaine daily to maintain their manic performance levels, while crew members needed stimulants just to keep up with the increasingly erratic shooting schedule. What the studio didn't realize? The film's famous improvisational energy was actually drug-induced mania disguised as creative inspiration. Scenes that seemed spontaneous and brilliant were often the result of actors being too high to remember their actual lines. The devastating truth? Several careers were damaged or destroyed by addictions that began during Caddyshack's production, but the film's success covered up the personal tragedies happening behind the cameras. The comedy that launched 1,000 quotes also launched a dozen rehabilitation stints, with the very success that should have been celebratory becoming a source of guilt and shame for those who knew the real cost. 6. Michael O'Keefe's dreams were crushed by success. Here's the shocking truth about how Caddyshack destroyed Michael O'Keefe's serious acting ambitions forever. The young actor playing Danny Noonan was fresh from dramatic training and desperately wanted to be the next Al Pacino, but his association with lowbrow comedy typecast him as a lightweight before he could prove his range. O'Keefe watched helplessly as prestigious directors stopped returning his calls and dramatic roles disappeared from consideration. What nobody knew? O'Keefe later admitted he hated his character and felt embarrassed by the film's crude humor, but was contractually obligated to promote it as the greatest experience of his life. The devastating truth? His performance as the earnest, struggling caddy was so believable because he was actually struggling with his own feelings of artistic betrayal. The movie that should have launched his career instead trapped him in a persona he despised, forcing him to smile and pretend he was grateful for success that felt like failure. His breakthrough became his breakdown, and audiences never knew the difference. 7. The Gopher Puppeteers suffered real injuries. Here's what they never told you about the dangerous conditions that the Caddyshack Gopher Puppeteers endured underground. The adorable dancing gopher that became the film's breakout star was operated by human beings working in cramped, dangerous tunnels beneath the golf course that posed serious health and safety risks. Multiple puppeteers suffered injuries from cave-ins, flooding, and equipment malfunctions that were covered up to avoid insurance claims and production delays. What shocked the industry most? The puppeteers were working in conditions that violated every safety regulation, but nobody cared as long as the Gopher kept performing. The devastating truth? Several operators developed permanent back and respiratory problems from working in the confined, poorly ventilated spaces, but their injuries were dismissed as occupational hazards rather than preventable accidents. 8. Ted Knight's perfectionism nearly broke him. Nobody knew that Ted Knight's brilliant Judge Smales performance was destroying his mental health through obsessive perfectionism that bordered on psychological breakdown. The veteran actor's background in serious theater made him approach every line reading with scholarly intensity that was completely at odds with the film's improvisational chaos. Knight would spend hours analyzing his character's motivations for scenes that other actors were making up on the spot. What the cast didn't realize? Knight's famous pompous delivery was actually him fighting back tears of frustration and professional embarrassment. The devastating truth? Knight felt like his decades of classical training were being wasted on crude comedy that he considered beneath his artistic dignity. His performance was perfect because he was desperately trying to find meaning in material that he believed was meaningless. 9. The explosion scenes used real dynamite. Here's the devastating truth about Caddyshack's climactic explosion that nearly killed the entire cast and crew. The film's famous gopher hunting finale wasn't created with safe movie pyrotechnics. It used actual dynamite and explosives that posed genuine danger to everyone on set. What shocked safety inspectors who investigated later? The production had bypassed normal safety protocols and hired unlicensed explosives experts who were more concerned with creating spectacular visuals than protecting human lives. Multiple cast members were nearly killed by debris and shockwaves that exceeded all safety calculations. The devastating truth? The explosion that audiences laughed at was actually a barely controlled disaster that could have ended in multiple deaths. The fact that nobody was seriously injured was pure luck rather than proper planning. The sequence that perfectly captured the film's anarchic spirit was created through real anarchy that threatened everyone involved. 10. Harold Ramis lost control of his own movie. Here's the shocking truth that nobody talks about. Director Harold Ramis watched helplessly as his carefully planned comedy was hijacked by actors who refused to follow his vision. The filmmaker's original script was a structured satire of class conflict, but the final product became an incoherent collection of improvised scenes that abandoned the story he'd wanted to tell. What did the studio not understand? Ramos's subsequent career was haunted by his failure to control the Caddyshack production, making him doubt his abilities as a director for years afterward. The devastating truth? The film's success felt like failure to its own creator, who knew that the finished product bore little resemblance to his original artistic intention. Ramos had been defeated by his own cast, forced to edit together a movie from footage that represented everything he tried to avoid. Bonus fact: here's what they never told you about the actual golf course employees who were forbidden from appearing in their own workplace's movie. The real caddies at Rolling Hills Country Club were excluded from filming because producers feared their authentic experiences would expose the fictional story's lies about caddy life. The devastating truth? The people who actually lived the experiences being dramatized were considered too real for Hollywood's sanitized version of their struggles. Golf looked like pure fun in 1980, but Caddyshack's reality was rougher than any water hazard. Want more shocking movie secrets that'll ruin your favorite comedies? Hit subscribe and ring that bell. 4.